Hey y'all, it's Stephen Van Kampen-Lewis, and today I want to show you two blooms actually, both primary hybrids, both really nice and small plants, so super cool. And then I want to show you how to pollinate a Cattleya. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the blooming plants that I'm going to show you here in a moment, and I'm going to cross it with my Cattleya Hardyana, and there's a photo of that here. And so what I want to do is show you how to do that and sort of prime you for following along for the blooms to fade, the seed pod to form, the seeds to get flasked, the flask to be deflasked and potted up, and then ideally for the plants to bloom in 7-ish years or so, I guess. So if you are going to be pollinating Cattleyas and doing crosses or making your own progeny, you got to be patient and you got to do it for the long term. So what you want to do is pick really great plants that have the potential for doing really cool stuff. Because if you're expending that much time and effort into a cross, you want it to be nice. So anyway, let's get this camera turned around and I will show you these two blooming plants and then show you how I'm going to cross these two Cattleyas using pollen that I collected from that Hardyana a couple weeks ago. All right, so you can see these two blooming beauties in front of me. The first one here, this is Cattleya MJ Quintal, and I'll spell that out here on the screen, and it's Prestans by Nobilior, and it's really cool. This is the first time I've ever seen this blooming. This is the first time I've ever seen this cross, to be honest, and I'm impressed. Nice compact plant on a large-ish flower. And, nice color, interesting markings in the lip here. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. And you can see that lip has really nice patterns. What's interesting is the side lobes have sort of folded over on each other like this. So that's kind of an interesting way to do it, I guess. I don't know which parent. I guess that would come from the Prestans. But what's really interesting is both Prestans and Nobilior are very flat. And you can see, so when you hear people talking about a full flat flower, they're talking about this shape here, where the petals and sepals are sort of on a plane, and they're pretty flat. Fullness, this could be more full, and the windows here on the petals and sepals would be closed, so there would be less space here. So that would be full. So as these segments get larger and sort of rounder, that's the fullness part of that. And then, of course, like I said, the flatness you can see on that second bloom there in the back or on the side of the plant. Now, this gorgeous beauty is Cattleya Blossfeldiana, which is Luteola by Rex. Of course, I think we're mostly familiar with Rex, and that's what the flower color really takes after here. The luteola really provides a smaller plant with smaller flowers, so it's pretty compact. But we got 7 flowers on this one spike, so this is the kind of thing that I would love to get shown and awarded. And unfortunately, these flowers opened up a little less than a week after our most recent judging, so I'm not going to be able to get that awarded on this bloom, but hopefully it'll bloom again later in this year. And so this is actually the plant that I'm going to put that Cattleya Hardyana onto. So I've got the pollen, I'll pull that out of the fridge, and then I will move this over to the table, and we'll start pollinating. All right, so what I'm going to do is cut off the lip, so that A, it's easier to access, and B, you can just see it better. So this is actually something that I do even when I'm not filming, just to make things a whole lot easier. And so you see this is the column here is exposed. Actually, I'll just use the scissors. So we've taken the lip off and we've exposed this column here. And this is where the reproductive parts are. And so at the distal end here, the very tip, is the anther cap, and below the anther cap is the pollinia. And so what we need to do is pull out the pollinia, and then we can place the pollinia from the Cattleya hardyana on. And so what I just use my finger. So I'll just take my finger like this, kind of press onto it, and it's sticky. And I've got a photo here of the, so that's the cap, and here's a photo of the cap, and then underneath the cap, when you pull it away, hopefully you can see the pollen there, and if not, here's a close-up photo. I say pollen, but that's the pollinia. And whoops. And so you can see them side by side here. In this case, they're very small, of course, as you can imagine. On larger orchids, they're quite a bit larger and easier to see. In fact, the Cattleya hardyana pollinia are probably easily twice, maybe even larger than this, just because the flower itself is, at least twice as large. So on the underside of this column is this sticky stigmatic surface. And what it does is that's where the pollen is going to go. And so it looks like towards the distal end of the column here, you'll just have this, on the underside, you'll see, and here's a photo of it, you'll see this sort of area that's kind of hollow, and it's actually filled with a sticky goop. And so that goop is what holds on to the pollen when a bee or a human comes by and drops off the pollen. And then the pollen, the pollinia, the sperm, start to go down the column and then into the ovary there and create the seed, of course. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pollen that's on the end of this paintbrush, and I'm going to flip it over and pop it in here and there. So the pollen's in there now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sort of round part, the harder part, and just make sure that that's pushed all the way up in there. And that's it. This thing is now officially knocked up, I guess you could say. And so what I need to do is watch these remaining petals and sepals will eventually drop, and eventually I say probably like tomorrow. It's a pretty quick process. And then the back of the flower here is the ovary, and this will start to swell. And as this swells, it gets bigger and bigger and rounder, and then this will hold seed. I'm not entirely sure how long. We have to look up how long Rex and Luteola typically take. I'll send this off to get flasked. Then I'll pull the plants out of the flask and then get them potted up. And then it's time for seedlings.